In a city of millions, Brian had spent 12 years making sure no one got too close. He had a reason, a good one, and for 12 years, it had kept him safe. Then one Sunday, a woman he had never spoken to looked at him and said hi, and everything he had built to protect himself began to come undone. Brian was 30 years old when his heart was broken, not in a dramatic way, not in a single, shattering moment. It happened slowly. A relationship that had felt right until it didn't. A person he had trusted completely until the reasons not to became impossible to ignore. And then it ended. And Brian walked away from it changed. Not loudly, not dramatically, just quietly, permanently changed. He had been living in Singapore for a few years by then, building something steady, a career that was growing, a life that was starting to feel like home. He had believed he was ready for love. He had been wrong. And so he made a decision. He didn't announce it, didn't tell anyone, just made it. The way you make the quiet decisions that end up shaping everything. He stepped back from people, from possibilities, from the risk of letting anyone close enough to matter. At first, he told himself it was temporary, just until he healed, just until things made sense again. But weeks became months, months became years, and somewhere along the way, temporary became permanent. His apartment was clean and ordered. His routines were precise. His life was structured, efficient, and deeply, deliberately protected. From the outside, it looked like a man who had everything figured out. From the inside, it was a man who had simply decided that the cost of being hurt again was too high. Brian never stopped going to church, even in the years when his faith felt less like a fire and more like a quiet ember. He showed up. He sat in his usual spot. He listened. He left before the crowds, before the conversations, before anything could require him. He had it perfected. The clean exit, present for what mattered, gone before anything could grow. But he never stopped praying, not long prayers, not elaborate ones, just honest. The kind you pray when you're too tired to perform. God, I don't understand what happened. Silence. Was I wrong? Did I miss something? Stillness. And on the better nights, something softer. Help me not to carry this the wrong way. He didn't ask for love again, not for a long time, because asking meant being open, and open meant risk. And risk was the one thing he had quietly decided to stop taking. The years passed. At 35, the questions started. From friends, from family, from people who meant well. Are you seeing anyone? Don't you think it's time? A man like you shouldn't be alone. He would smile, deflect, change the subject, and go home to his quiet apartment in his window above the city. And the prayer that hadn't fully formed yet, still waiting for a voice. Brian was 38 when everything shifted. It didn't look like a shift, it looked like an ordinary Sunday. Service ended. He gathered his things the way he always did, efficiently, without delay. He was almost at the door when someone spoke. "Hey, Brian." He turned. It was an older man from the congregation, Edmund. Quiet, like Brian, but with a different kind of quiet. Not the kind that comes from hiding. The kind that comes from having already found what you were looking for. "You always leave so quickly," Edmund said. "Do you ever stay and talk?" Brian felt the familiar pull of the easy answer. "I'm just heading out." But something stopped him. "Not really," he said instead. Edmund nodded, like he had expected exactly that. Then, after a pause, he said something Brian would not forget. "Sometimes the thing you're praying for is on the other side of a conversation you're avoiding." Brian blinked. Not because the words were complicated, but because they were precise, the way the right words always are. "I'll think about that," Brian said. He walked to the door, the way he always had. But something followed him home that wasn't silence. That night, sitting by the window, he turned the words over slowly. "A conversation you're avoiding." He almost said out loud, "I'm not avoiding anything." But even as the thought formed, he felt the truth beneath it. He wasn't avoiding conversations. He was avoiding possibilities. He exhaled, long and slow, and for the first time in 12 years, he didn't pray the safe prayer. God, if I've closed something you didn't ask me to close. He let the sentence breathe. Show me. No voice came, no sign, just the city below, and something in him that had shifted, not in his circumstances, but in his willingness. And sometimes, that is where everything begins. The following Sunday, Brian stayed, not long, just a few minutes past the end of service, just enough to not be the first one out the door. It felt strange, uncomfortable in a way that surprised him, given how small the act was. Standing, letting the room move around him, not calculating his exit. People greeted him. He responded. Someone laughed nearby. The air smelled faintly of coffee from the refreshment table at the back. He stood in the middle of it all, slightly unsure of what he was doing there. And then someone spoke. Hi. He turned. A woman stood a few feet away, not close enough to be intrusive, just close enough to have spoken naturally. She was smiling. Not the automatic smile of social performance. The real kind. The kind that reaches the eyes before it reaches the mouth. She had a warmth about her that he felt immediately. Not overwhelming, just undeniable, like sunlight through a window. Present, steady, clear. Brian realized dimly that he had seen her before, a face he had filed away without studying, someone who had been in the same room as him on many Sundays. I think you're always gone before I can say hi, she said. So, hi. He felt something he couldn't name in the moment. Not attraction exactly. Not yet. Something quieter. The feeling of a window opening in a room that had been closed for a very long time. Hi, he said. His voice came out even, measured, the way it always did. But he didn't leave. I'm Syombua. She said it simply, without agenda, like someone who had never needed a name to be an entrance. Brian, he said. And for the first time in 12 years. That was not the end of a conversation. It was the beginning of one. Syombua was 34 years old and had never had her heart broken, not because she hadn't loved. She had freely and fully the way people love when they are not afraid. But she lived from a place of such natural openness that even pain, when it came, passed through her rather than settling. She grieved things cleanly, felt them fully, and moved forward. She was Kember. She had grown up in Nairobi in a home that was full of noise, of people, of laughter you could hear from the street. She had carried that warmth with her to Singapore, where she worked and built a life that was as full as the one she had left. She was not naive. She was not reckless. But she had refused, firmly and deliberately, to let fear curate her life. She asked real questions. She remembered the answers. She laughed at things that were actually funny and didn't pretend otherwise. She was the kind of person who made a room feel different simply by being present in it. She had noticed Brian long before he stayed long enough to be noticed. The quiet man who always left early. The one who listened during service like he was taking notes. The one who never looked quite settled. She had prayed about it once, not a large prayer, just a small, honest thought offered upward. Whatever he's carrying, God, will you tend to it? She hadn't expected to become part of the answer to her own prayer, but that is, sometimes, exactly how it works. Their first conversation lasted 22 minutes. Brian knew because he checked his watch when it ended. Not out of impatience, but out of disbelief. 22 minutes. He hadn't spoken that freely to anyone in years. She had asked questions. He had answered honestly. She hadn't pushed or pried, but she had listened with the kind of attention that makes a person feel like what they're saying actually matters. He said more than he intended to, Not about the heartbreak. Not about the 12 years. Not yet, but more than he usually gave. And something in him, quietly, loosened. Just slightly. Just enough. Like the first thread of something long knotted, finally finding its end. They began to talk more after that, not suddenly, not dramatically, but consistently. The way real things build. Slowly enough that you don't notice them building, until you look back and realize something has changed. Syombua didn't try to unlock Brian. She had been around enough people to know that a locked room doesn't open faster when you rattle it. She simply stayed near enough that when he was ready to open it himself, she would be there. And that quality of unhurried presence was something he had never experienced before. The women who had shown interest over the years had always moved with urgency. Push forward. Define this. Make a decision. And every time, Brian had retreated. Because urgency felt like pressure. Pressure felt like demand. And demand felt like the beginning of something he would eventually disappoint. Syombua never once pushed. She was simply present, warm and easy and genuinely interested. And somehow, that was more disarming than anything urgent could have been. There were still hard days. Days when Brian felt the old instinct rise. This is getting closer than is safe. This is becoming something that could cost you. He would go quiet on those days. A little more clipped, a little less available. Retreating by millimeters the way he always had, Syombua noticed. She always did, but she never called him on it. She simply waited until he came back, and said nothing more than, "I'm glad you're here." Once she did say something, quietly, without agenda. "You don't have to explain your walls to me. But I want you to know, I'm not trying to take anything from you." He didn't respond, but he heard it. And it settled somewhere important. Weeks passed, then months. And slowly, almost without his permission, Brian began to change. He started staying after service without counting the minutes. He started initiating conversations instead of waiting for her to lead. He started looking forward to Sundays, not just for church, but for the time afterward. For the laugh that reached her eyes before it reached her mouth, for the way she said his name. Not as a performance, not as a question, just Brian. And something in him, long dormant, long guarded, began very quietly to remember how to want something. It happened on a Tuesday. Nothing unusual had occurred. No special conversation, no dramatic moment. Just an ordinary evening, and Syombua's voice still in his head from the day before. Something she had said about joy. She had talked about joy the way some people talk about weather, like it was simply a feature of the day. Available. Present. Worth noticing. Brian sat in his chair by the window. The city moved below him as it always had, and he found himself thinking about her. About the way things had shifted in him without his permission. He had not planned this. He had not opened himself to it. And yet, here it was. Something warm and unmistakable, and quietly, undeniably real. He exhaled, and then he prayed the prayer he hadn't prayed in 12 years. "God, I think I'm falling for her." He paused, waiting for the old fear to rise, waiting to talk himself out of it. But it didn't come. Instead, something else arrived. Something that felt less like fear and more like release. "I don't know what to do with that, but you do." He sat with it a long time, the city below him, the quiet around him, something fragile and warm, holding still inside his chest. And for the first time in 12 years, being open didn't feel like danger. It felt like answered prayer. He told her on a Saturday, not with a speech, not with a grand gesture, just the two of them, walking along the waterfront near Marina Bay, an afternoon that had started as something simple and become, quietly, something else entirely. The evening had settled around them, that particular Singapore dusk, where the light turns amber, and the city seems briefly, beautifully still. They had been talking for hours, easily, without needing to fill every pause, and Brian, who had spent 12 years measuring every word, found himself not measuring at all. He stopped walking. She stopped too, looked at him, waiting, the way she always waited, without urgency, without pressure. "I want to say something," he said, "and I need you to know that saying it is not easy for me." "Okay," she said simply. "I've been careful," he started, "for a long time. Very careful about not letting anything get close enough to matter." She didn't say anything, just listened. "You got close enough to matter," he said, "and I'd like, if you're open to it, to see what this is." Silence, the kind that holds something important in it. And then Syombua smiled. Not a triumphant smile, not a surprised one, just warm. The kind that said, "I know. I've been waiting for you to say so." "I'm open to it," she said. And that was it. No elaborate moment, no cinematic backdrop. Just two people on a waterfront in the amber evening, choosing to begin. They married 18 months later, a quiet ceremony, in the city they had both chosen, in front of the people who mattered most. Simple, deliberate, deeply felt. Brian wore an expression people who knew him well had never quite seen before. Not just happiness, something more specific. Relief. The deep, bone-level kind. The kind that comes when something you had quietly given up on arrives quietly, right on time, Syombua cried, fully and unashamedly, the way she did everything, with no distance between what she felt and what she showed, which was, Brian thought, part of why he had needed her. She had shown him what it looked like to feel things without bracing for impact. And slowly, over time, he had learned. Someone asked him at the reception what he would say to someone still in their waiting season. Brian thought for a moment. Then, "I don't think the waiting was wasted. I think it was preparation." He paused. "The version of me that got hurt at 30 wasn't ready to receive her, wasn't ready to be what she needed. I needed those years, even the difficult ones, to become someone who could actually show up." He glanced across the room to where Syombua was laughing, freely, fully, completely herself. "God didn't forget about me during those 12 years. He was doing something with them." A pause. "So if you're waiting, don't waste the waiting. Let it do what it's meant to do." Syombua had not come to Singapore looking for Brian. She had come for herself, for the season of growth. She had known for a long time was waiting for her here. She had packed her bags in Nairobi with the particular excitement of a woman who is not running from something, but toward it, toward a bigger version of herself, toward work that challenged her, toward a city that would ask more of her than comfort ever could. She had not put love on the list. Not because she didn't want it, but because she had learned, somewhere along the way, that the things worth having rarely arrive when you are looking directly at them. They arrive when you are busy being fully alive. And you look up, and there they are. So she had lived fully, thrown herself into her work, built friendships that were real, found a church that felt like home, created a life in Singapore that was warm and full and entirely, genuinely hers. And she had been happy, truly happy, but she had also carried something quiet, not a wound, not a longing, just an awareness. The awareness of a woman who knows herself well enough to know that she was made for partnership, that somewhere in her future was a person she would love with everything she had, and that the love she was capable of giving was too large and too real to be given to just anyone. So she had held it, gently, without gripping, trusting that God, who had been faithful in every other area of her life, would be faithful in this one too. Months later, after the conversations, after the 22 minutes had become hours, after the Sunday mornings had become the things she looked forward to most, Syombua sat in her apartment, and thought about how it had happened, not with disbelief, not with the nervous energy of someone who can't trust a good thing, just with gratitude. With the particular, quiet gratitude of a woman who asked God for something real and received it. She had not asked for someone perfect. She had asked for someone true. Someone who meant what he said and said what he meant. Someone whose faith was not decoration, but foundation. Someone who would grow with her, not someone she would need to drag. And Brian, guarded, careful, 12 years protected Brian, was all of that. She had seen it before. He had shown it to her. That was the gift of being someone who paid attention. You saw people not just as they presented themselves, but as they actually were, and what Brian actually was a man worth waiting for. He just needed someone willing to be patient enough to let him arrive. She had been that person, quietly, faithfully, without agenda, and standing at the altar 18 months later, watching him wear an expression she had never seen on his face before, relief, deep and bone level and completely unguarded. She understood something fully. God had not just answered her prayer for him, he had answered her prayer for herself. Because the love she had been holding gently all these years, the love she had refused to give to just anyone, had found exactly the right home. And it had been worth every day of the wait. There is a kind of waiting that looks, from the outside, like nothing is happening. No movement, no progress, no visible sign that anything is shifting. Just a person living their life, carrying something quiet, praying prayers that don't always feel heard. Brian waited 12 years, not gracefully, for all of it, not without pain or doubt, or the particular loneliness of choosing protection over possibility, but faithfully. And when the door finally opened, he was still there, changed by the years, but present and ready, and whole enough to receive what had been coming all along. Syombua didn't save him. She simply arrived when God decided the door had been open long enough. And Brian, for the first time in 12 years, didn't close it. If God cares for the birds of the air, how much more does he care for you? Matthew 6:26. He didn't make a dramatic announcement. He didn't declare a fast. He didn't post about it. He just made a quiet decision and spent 12 years living inside it. And then one Sunday, he stayed 5 minutes longer than he planned, and God did the rest. That is what this channel is for. Stories that remind you God is still working, even in the quiet years, even when nothing seems to be moving, even when the waiting feels like it will never end. Subscribe to Written by Grace, Faith, and Forever Stories, and share this with someone who needs to hear today that their waiting season is not wasted. God is doing something with it.